はい、本日はご多様の中、ロボット革命産業 IoT 国際シンポジウム2023にご参加いただきありがとうございます。会場にもたくさんの方がお見えになっておりますし、ネットでも多くの方が参加されていることに感謝を申し上げます。私はロボット革命産業 IoT イニシアティブ協議会の中富と申します。本日は国際シンポジウムの開会のご挨拶をさせていただきます。本シンポジウムは RRI が日本の経済産業省とドイツの経済気候保護省との共催を得て開催をいたします。本シンポジウムは2015年に初回を行い、今年で9回目となります。私自身も2018年から昨年は出られませんでしたが、毎年参加をしてきているところでございます。グローバルのリーダー、専門家の方々にご参加いただき、ロボティクス産業 IoT にまつわる将来像や課題および対応について、大変綿密で中身のある議論を重ねてまいりました。2020年から日本語、英語によりオンライン配信も行い、グローバルにメッセージを発信しているところでございます。第9回となります今回は、データ連携された世界における競争戦略をテーマとしております。この後のセッション1、セッション1では、事例から見るデータ連携をテーマとし、製造業企業がデータ連携をどのように活用しているのか、欧州での実践例をご紹介いただきます。午後からになりますが、セッション2では、データの循環と価値創出をテーマとし、欧州、アメリカの動向を紹介いただくとともに、セッション1の議論も踏まえ、産業界のデジタル化が目指すビジョンについて議論いただきます。セッション3では、ドイツプラットフォームインダストリー 4.0 と RRI との連携協力の進捗報告となります。産業セキュリティ、国際標準化などに関し、60回を超える会合で議論を重ねて、日独連携のパイプとして定着してまいりました。日独でデータ連携の国際的枠組みについて、連携の動きが深まっていることを評価したいと思います。また、最後のスロットでは、日独の枠を超え、グローバルで検討が始まっているインターナショナルマニュファクチャリング X 評議会についての議論があります。今回も一日を通しまして、専門的ではありますが、極めて戦略的な議論が展開されるものと期待をしているところでございます。また、セッションの終了後、18時から、この会場の5階の機械振興クラブにおきまして、ネットワーキングの準備をしております。軽食とお飲み物を準備しておりますので、時間のある方はぜひご参加いただきますようお願いいたします。最後に、本シンポジウムにご協賛いただきました経済産業省、ドイツの経済気候保護省、スポンサーの皆様、講演告知にご協力いただいた皆様に感謝申し上げます。それでは、本国際シンポジウムの開催を宣言いたしたいと思います。はじめに、セッション1の進行役とモデレーターを務めていただく、日立製作所の入江様をご紹介いただきます。入江様は昨年のシンポジウムのモデレーターも務めておられましたし、また産業データ連携アクショングループのタスクフォースリーダーも務めておられます。ご存知の方多いことと思います。それでは入江様、よろしくお願い申し上げます。
ただいまご紹介に預かりました、株式会社日立製作所制御プラットフォーム統括本部シニアストラテジストの入江と申します。本セッション1の、司会と、それから、パネルディスカッションのモデレーターを務めさせていただきます。私自身はRRI のワーキンググループ1の共同示唆ということで務めさせていただいておりますし、先ほど中富様からもありましたように、データ連携、産業データ連携のユースケースを検討するタスクのリーダーも務めさせていただいております。よろしくお願いします。で、セッションに入る前に1点だけお願いがございます。後ほどのパネルディスカッションに向けて、講演者に質問のある方は、YouTube の概要欄にあるリンクから Q&A サイト、スライディオの、を開いていただき、ご質問と名前の欄にご所属と、お名前をご入力いただきたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。はい、それでは、講演に移りたいと思います。最初の講演者は、ドイツ経済気候保護省次長のマーク・ヘス様です。講演タイトルは Building the Future Industrial Data Economy です。それではヘス様、よろしくお願いいたします。
Dear Hotta-san, dear Nakatomi-san, ladies and gentlemen, minasama ohayo gozaimasu. First of all, I would like to thank the Robot Revolution Initiative for the invitation and the excellent organization today. Thank you very much for this. It's a pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, the digital transformation of our industries presents us all with major challenges in equal measure. Intelligent manufacturing is a reality in many cases today, but Industry 4.0 goes far beyond increasing efficiency through automation and smart factories. Make no mistake, the future industry will be data-driven. It is about enabling data-based innovation, applications, and business models. The focus is therefore shifting to cross-company collaboration covering whole value chains, whole value networks. And it is not only cross-company, but also cross-country, or better, around the globe. We see in data ecosystems tremendous potential to strengthen the resilience and sustainability of global supply chains. And even more, it is key to secure future competitiveness. And competition will be fierce. As I said, industrial supply chains and value networks do not end at national borders. A global approach is undoubtedly required. And we need, altogether, speed up to be up to the challenge. The creation of global data-driven ecosystems is the next major development step in Industry 4.0. It will transform industry across all sectors. And this will have an impact on societies as well. Here in Japan, you cover all these issues in your strategy, Society 4.0, and rightly so. Looking at the needs of industry, it is fair to say that Catena-X is well known with its innovative approach for the automotive industry. It introduces and implements a scalable concept how to use data along the automotive value chain while users keep control over their data. Trust and benefit for all participants are essential for this success. As I've experienced personally in the course of the years, trust and benefit are cornerstones of the Japanese industry. So Catena-X is almost Japanese by design. Ladies and gentlemen, to really push the whole industry towards modern and open data ecosystems, we have to get on board all industrial sectors or verticals. International Manufacturing X stands exactly for this idea. For the reasons mentioned before, it is evident that we need a global initiative where all countries have the opportunity to contribute from the very beginning and on equal footing. Every participant can shape character and core of International Manufacturing X. This initiative has already received an overwhelming support from across the globe. The vision of International Manufacturing X is threefold. First, connect value chains and manufacturing data networks across industries and countries. Second, implement the global foundations for data-driven, resilient, sovereign, and climate-neutral production. And third, enable innovative value creation in an interoperable and sovereign data ecosystem. So, together, to our conviction, we can make this vision come true and develop International Manufacturing X into an initiative with high international appeal and global direction. When we together develop these solutions, the solutions will be much cheaper for everyone involved on the business side. Working on this together, to our understanding, is therefore key. Ladies and gentlemen, today's symposium is perfect for an exchange on these topics. I would like to encourage the companies and experts, whether they are already part of this initiative or not, to take advantage of the opportunities of cooperation. The German federal government has been supporting International Manufacturing X and its global dimension from the very beginning. But we are only one member. We are one member of this entire ecosystem. The more we are, the more resilient and more competitive and more successful the entire ecosystem, the entire International Manufacturing X ecosystem will be. Together, ladies and gentlemen, and I would say personally only together, we can form the digital transformation and create new value for our economies and societies. I wish you all a very fruitful and successful symposium. Thank you for your attention. Arigato.
ヘス様、どうもありがとうございました。次の講演者は、Catena-X オートモーティブネットワークのボードメンバーであり、SAPSE のヘッドオブインダストリービジネスユニットオートモーティブグローバルバイスプレゼントであるハーゲン・ホイバッハ様です。
Ohayou gozaimasu. Also a very warm welcome and thanks for the invitation from my side. As said, my name is Hagen Heubach and I'm speaking here really in a dual role and really looking forward to give you also some insights about the latest development around Catena-X. Mr. Heß was so kind to also to introduce a little bit our initiative and where we currently stand. The thing is really where we said from the beginning of Catena-X, and if we look back when we started this initiative two and a half years ago, it was not really of, founding an association, building operating companies, or having real big projects together. It was all about addressing the major business problems of an entire industry. And of course, if we look at the automotive industry, we are facing some global challenges which are applying to most of all the players all around the globe. It doesn't matter if you're a big size car manufacturer or small and medium sized component supplier, the challenges around the automotive industries are currently always the same. First, it's all about resilience. And especially in the areas of automotive where we have the big shift from classical combustion engine to electromobility, the resilience across the entire value chain is so important and one of the biggest challenges what we have to tackle. We are facing raw material shortages, the chip crisis, new business models are kicking in, and this all, of course, affects the entire value chain. Gaining visibility on the entire value chain is core crucial. Only then we can improve productivity, getting better on cost and efficiencies, and also just implement new processes for this new dawn of the automotive industry. Second, it's all about sustainable, and it's all about becoming sustainable. The entire automotive industry is shifting and has committed to the sustainability goals of the UN, and of course implementing a true product carbon footprint from a fully assembled car all the way down to the raw material. This is the next big challenge. The interesting part about it is, if you look at the value chain, it's actually the same transparency what we need for sustainability and providing the product carbon footprint, while at the same time also we needed to solve the problems around logistics and quality. So focusing on this next thing around sustainability and transparency is one thing, but also leveraging it to implement new business and new business models around circularity and circular economy. This is one of the key value drivers why I initiated Catena-X. Third topic, of course, it's all around a systematic approach and providing a system where we actually are able to share the data on a very trusted, neutral, and interoperable way. This was really at the core and the idea of founding Catena-X from the beginning. And this is something what we cannot solve one by one on the one hand side, but we also cannot solve it with the technology what we're using for 20, 30 years in the automotive industry. We have technologies for data exchange long time. However, this is a peer-to-peer exchange and doesn't follow a network approach. So last but not least, also looking at the joint character. We always said tackling these problems around the automotive industry, we all can go one by one, but it's all also about delivering an industry approach which truly unleashes the value to each company, but also as an entire ecosystem. So the core idea was, if we can find an ecosystem where every player is on the one hand side trusting in the system and can exchange the data across the entire value chain, while on the other side we're also delivering actually the solutions, the applications, and I would say the end-to-end processes, then we truly are winning. So we were 2.5 years at this intersection of saying, where do we want to be? Do we want to be an industry where everyone is following an individual company approach? We would truly end up in a dead end. Or we really unleash the power and accelerating through a common industry approach where we all come together. We come together as one industry, from industry adopters like big OEMs, suppliers, recyclers, but on the other side also the outfitters of an industry, the IT provider, the service providers, the machine providers. Everyone should come together and work jointly in this big project. And looking back, obviously this was the foundation of Catena-X and building this entire data-driven value chain from a raw material to the fully assembled car, but even further, we don't stop at the start of production of the vehicle. We go do the usage until the recycling to get the full transparency and the full visibility across the entire value chain. So transparency of the value chain is one thing and data exchange on the one hand side. but the use cases which are lying on top actually of the value chain, these are the true value drivers and business generators of this initiative. It was always about solving the biggest problems for these use cases. It was never about just providing a platform, an ecosystem, or a network where we can exchange data. So looking at the three big blocks around use cases, what we're addressing around sustainability, resilience of supply chains, and compliant or new approaches to the product lifecycle management, the use cases around product carbon footprint tracking, demand capacity management, or for example, quality feedback loops, this was the true business cases what we actually enabled and said, let's come together and build this initiative. So what is now new about Catena-X? And it's always what we always also want to highlight. Coming together as one industry and working collaboratively together also has, of course, some challenges. We always said, on the one hand side, Catena-X needs to be truly open and interoperable. And truly openness means there is no central governance. There is also no one-time controllable approach from one company or from one platform provider. It truly means that we are establishing a truly federated, decentralized operating system where all the companies can contribute but also extract the value. Because only if we contribute only jointly together, then we also can extract the value. Second, it's really all about customer value journeys and solving the business goals and the problems. It's not a one vendor approach where you say, okay, I need to stick to one solution or in one technology. I really have the openness to apply multiple applications for the business use cases, multiple marketplaces, and multiple operations what we have. And then obviously, we also said, when we're going to start this journey, it's also about standardization. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance what the automotive industry has, where we can come together and work on common new standards and new open source components where we said we're focusing on to establish this next generation processes for the automotive industry. So new standards obviously mean in the area of sustainability, there are no standards for the automotive industry. How is the CO2 footprint calculated for an entire car? We don't have it yet. So we said it's now the time to come together and define these standards jointly. Because if anyone all around the world is doing its own, we end up in a dead end again. And last but not least, to mention, this is really the topic around open source. And let me be clear here once again. We founded Catena-X as one of the biggest open source communities contributing in the different areas around technology services, business use cases, or even services all around the world. So technically means Catena-X doesn't belong to anyone. It also doesn't belong to the German automotive industry, not the European automotive industry. It's totally global. Everyone is invited to contribute and to commit and to help improve the system. So as I said, 2.5 years we started this journey with 28 mighty companies who said, yes, we are willing to invest. Yes, we are willing to work together also with the German government to found this initiative. And believe me, after a true roller coaster ride, we definitely say we are at the point of going live with Catena-X. We were super delighted and happy to say at the Hanover Fair this year, we started the productive beta phase of Catena-X, which means live data sharing was released for selected companies to test out the system. And always think about it, 2 years after we had nothing. We had nothing to say about how do we want to develop, which standards are we using, which use cases are we doing. This was really like a speedboat. And it's also a true example what we see when all the companies are coming together. All the companies are coming together and can really accelerate around the key technology changes. So what happened during this phase, we started with this really radical collaboration approach that we released 4 open source kits. We released almost 60 standards within these first 2 years, and we were really lucky to have one central operating model where it gives every user the freedom to choose which operational company or approach I want to take. And of course, this whole thing is embedded in the standards we all agreed on about data sovereignty, data trust, and data security. And our framework, obviously, for this is Gaia-X. That's why we implemented and also said we are the first Gaia-X compliant industry data space, what we established and said with the fundamental services and the fundamental technology approaches, we said we're going now to this journey. So this means after 2 years, the open source and federated services to exchange data across the entire value chain are there, and they can be used for productive use cases and data exchange. Of course, applications had to be developed in it. Of course, there were standards who needs to be defined, but we truly made it. But now the next challenge is coming and was coming since April this year of saying, yeah, the companies and the industry players need to use it. And also we need to eat our own dog food, as you say in English. So this means we initiated with the first automotive companies of the entire value chain this testing phase and also really living up to our standards and implementing the use cases. So I brought a small example from a use case here together with Mercedes, BASF and Witte, where we're focusing on the CO2 footprint to really give you a bit of a feeling about what does it mean to be live with Catena-X.
Wir arbeiten bei Mercedes-Benz nicht nur an der Elektrifizierung unserer Fahrzeugflotte, sondern wir schauen uns auch an, wo konkret kommen denn diese Bauteile her, die wir einkaufen und die wir auch verbauen. Darum geben wir unseren Lieferanten ganz konkrete und ambitionierte CO2-Zielwerte vor. Catena-X soll uns dabei unterstützen, diese Zielwerte zu tracken und die tatsächlich entstehenden Emissionen unserer Lieferanten einzusammeln.
Catena-X ist das Vehikel, mit dem ein Datenaustausch eines CO2-Fußabdruckes oder eines Produkt Carbon Footprints, wie man sagt, kurz PCF, in der Kette ermöglicht wird, damit der dort transportiert wird, akkumuliert wird und hinterher zum digitalen Zwilling wird. Dies haben wir bereits in einem Projekt mit Witte als Bauteilhersteller, BASF als Rohstoffhersteller und dem OEM Mercedes realisiert.
Bei der Berechnung des Product Carbon Footprints sind wir vor allem auf einen einheitlichen Standard angewiesen, der von unseren Kunden und von der gesamten Lieferkette akzeptiert und gleichermaßen genutzt wird. Und hier hilft uns das PCF-Rulebook von Catena-X eben, um genau diesen Standard zu setzen und für uns auch die Möglichkeit zu bieten, effizient zu arbeiten bei der PCF-Berechnung. Gleichzeitig bekommen wir über Catena-X die so wichtigen Primärdaten, um eben die Erfolge von Emissionsreduktionen in der Lieferkette sichtbar zu machen, messen zu können und auch neue Reduktionspotenziale aufzeigen zu können. Witte übernimmt ganz klar in Catena-X eine Vorreiterrolle stellvertretend für den Mittelstand, denn der Schlüssel zum Erfolg von Catena-X ist die Teilnahme möglichst vieler Unternehmen entlang der gesamten Wertschöpfungskette.
So on the one hand side, we truly see that Catena-X going into live and predictable flight mode. But of course, I mean, with the first companies being live on Catena-X, of course also the challenges arise. And let's be clear, 3 companies exchanging data does not mean we have the entire value chain together. And there are a lot of problems to solve actually on the way. If you say, for a use case like product carbon footprint, we need to tackle first the problem around material traceability. We need to focus on the problem around digital twins. We need to have the same semantics and the same standards for data exchange. So that's why we said, okay, let's also focus and go into this mode of real-life examples where customers and companies can experience Catena-X from day one. What truly does it mean? How an end-to-end implementation would look like. And to demonstrate also a little bit that Catena-X here is really in flight mode and we're not talking about theories anymore, we're talking about tangible business solutions. We brought actually one of the end-to-end implementations and how we live actually about one of the real-life examples from the automotive industry around the battery passport and the battery recycling tracking from the cells to the fully assembled car. So we look at this use case here, what we brought with us. What's the biggest problem? Obviously, the biggest problem is from a fully assembled car where you have access on the OEM side, obviously, about your bill of material, about your specification. How do I get all the way down to the battery module manufacturer, to the cell manufacturer, or even one level deeper to the mill and mining companies which provide, for example, the lithium for the battery cell by itself. And on the other side also, if you look to the right-hand side, it's also about not stopping where the car is actually produced and then shipped to the market. It's all around the usage data. It's about the battery performance. It's about the recycling data at the end of the life cycle. So putting this in an end-to-end approach, we really can show you also now in a system and in one or different applications how this works end-to-end, and all of a sudden we have access to this data and fully assemble them together. So in this case, we brought a small example from our SAP application, how we actually put the battery passport together, and always think about now, the data what you see here now are coming from the different sources, starting from a true digital twin foundation, providing real-life data, in this case from a Ford Mustang, what we have assembled, all the specification and materials what we have together, then going on the next level on the battery pack, on the battery passport by itself, we have, of course, all the information and all the supplier-related data available. But looking there on level deeper, we don't stop there. You immediately get access to the raw material information around what is the battery manufactured of, about raw materials, and so on. All in real life, assembled from the data coming from the different systems around the ecosystem. Then, in the next step, of course, after you're providing a battery passport and the first indications around battery by itself, it's all around material tracing and tracing back all the entire value chain. And I truly always say this is one of the most powerful tools what we can provide to the industry, getting and increasing this entire visibility. So providing a genealogy across the entire value chain happens now exactly, and that's what you see now with one click. The system provides you actually the entire visibility of a value chain. And I truly find this always impressive because these are all the parts which are delivered in only one assembled car. Going from this Ford Mach-E Mustang all the way down to the raw material, to the battery components, to all the different areas, and accessing this information, this is exactly what Catena-X is about. So assembling all the way down, cut and slicing all the different products in areas, this is what we're going to do. Then, of course, if you need information about these components and subcomponents, really drilling down from this value chain in the different angles, this is where we go. And of course, then in the last step, it's all around also the CO2 footprint and the sustainability data, which can be added now to this value chain. So if I want to go and drill deeper now and said, okay, what is, for example, the product carbon footprint of one of the components here? We can always do this very dynamically and very integrated into the entire system of the entire value chain. And you truly see, if you scroll deeper and deeper into the value chain, you see how much more complex it gets. But always keep in mind, all the information, what we're showing here, they are all under the rules and the guidelines of data sovereignty and data security. All of these companies who are contributing into this value chain have agreed on, yes, I want to share the data. And for sure, I mean, in some cases, some companies don't want to share, so you don't see it actually on your side. If we then go one level deeper, of course, the CO2 value and the calculation is one of the most challenging pieces what we have. And in this case, for a battery pack, the product carbon footprint, you see it around the 83 CO2 grams are here. From our side, it's really now the job to calculate a carbon footprint with all the different components what we have together. You see it, okay, we have the different components, and if there is a CO2 value missing, you can request it over Catena-X and over the different applications. You can request it from suppliers, you can request it from sub-suppliers, and so on and so forth. So you truly see, all of a sudden we get whole new possibilities and also processes of exchanging data and feeding the carbon footprint data into the system. The true goal is of saying, of course, hey, we want to have a carbon footprint, not only on an estimation anymore. This is true calculation of CO2 values for an entire product. All across the value chain, all across the different areas what we can provide. So in hindsight, and this is just to give you also a bit of a feeling, okay, where we're standing with Catena-X, that it's really tangible and we're really starting and taking off with Catena-X as a real-life ecosystem. Let's have a look at the product and the roadmap where we came on. As I said, we were running now a project, a development project, funded and in close collaboration with the German government for the last 2 years. And we're really at the edge of saying the standard technology services of Catena-X are there and are available. So we are in live flight mode of these use cases. Second, the underlying business cases and the business scenarios like product carbon footprint, demand capacity management, quality loops, this is exactly now everything delivered. And for us, it's now really of saying, let's use it. Let's try it out. And this trying out does not apply only for the German automotive industries. As we heard in the beginning, value chains are truly global and value chains are ticking around the world. So we highly invite all of the companies to contribute, to test, and just to try it out. So Catena-X officially will go live next week on October 16th, transitioning from the beta phase into the full public availability. Data sharing is then possible all across the players, all across the entire value chains. And of course, there will be enhancements and new releases coming because we are not at the end of this journey, that's for sure. Internationalization, of course, it's a true hard project from our side because since the beginning, we always said Catena-X, once again, is not owned by the German industry, by the German government or Europeans. We're truly interoperable and we're truly open. And of course, we're super proud that the first international hubs around France, rest of Europe, in the US are already establishing. And of course, we're looking to work very closely and collaborating with the ecosystems and the projects currently here in the region, but especially also in APJ. So let me wrap up. If we think about a true open and global ecosystem, our mission is always clear. Catena-X is only the vehicle to solve the business problems of the entire industry. We don't care if we're talking about Catena, manufacturing, it's all always about the business problems what we solve. Of course, we can provide with Catena-X some lessons learned and some best practices on the way what we experienced. And of course, if you look at the different area, there's value in. On the one hand side, we have with Trumpf one of the biggest open source developers communities where we heartily invite everyone around the world, take a look at our source code. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use the technology what is already there. You can take it from the open source stack and just do your own technology on top of it. So one of the things. Second, of course, we're always open for collaborating and we're looking really towards the Japanese industry also to collaborate on a very open and trusted and interoperable framework and learning from each other. Why? Data sharing in this context is not an easy way and it only can be done together, similar what we did at the beginning. And last but not least, there are also a great set of assets what we're releasing besides of the standard. There are white papers from different areas. We have an own rule book regarding the product carbon footprint, or in that case from the supplier side. So a couple of things what we truly deliver and bring together. At the end, we invite everyone to exchange, come talk to us. We are as transparent as possible at Catena-X, and we're truly looking forward, of course, on the one hand side, starting the next phase with Manufacturing X or Factory X for the machinery outfitters, but obviously also for the automotive industry, going into the close collaboration international, especially with the Japanese community. So with that, thank you very much, and looking forward to the discussions. Thank you.
ホイバッハ様、ありがとうございました。次の講演者は、トゥルンプス社のインゴ・サビラ様です。講演タイトルは、インダストリアルデータスペースアプローチとなります。それでは、サビラ様、よろしくお願いいたします。
So, good morning, everyone. Let me thank you for your invitation and to get a chance to speak here about the industrial approach. First of all, I want to give a little bit a look about that, what we mean under industrial data space. And the colleagues from the RRI told me not to talk about manufacturing X because they want to know a little bit more deeper what Trumpf realized in this approach, and I want to talk a little bit more about our best practices, and I will share our experience in joining data spaces to work with data and what's the potentials of data. But to understand the future, you have a look in the past. And what we see in the past, so I want to, what's happened 7 years ago in the past with the strategic question. So we have the question, how do we achieve data-driven decisions? Data-driven decisions, what means that? So if we look in the system, we found something difficult, so we have no structured data, okay? We have no data streaming, we have no regulation about that, and we have no data governance inside the company. And so we think about how can we achieve that to make it possible to make data-driven decisions, because the data are in the quality not so okay. They are data leaks, they are data loss inside the company to make good data-driven decisions. And we have to start from the scratch. And we have a lot of things to do and a lot of jobs to be done. So the journey starts, and overall we have to invest a lot of money and a lot of time with the colleagues, with the employees. We have to define some regulations inside the company. We have to learn how to use AI with the data we had. We have to take the employees to qualify them, because we have no idea how to manage data. We have no idea how to manage data quality inside the company and outside. We have no idea to work with the data from the machines, because we want to improve the machines based on the data from the machines. We have no data governance, for sure, because the quality in the machine or in the machine data was, we realized for a last time ago. And we have the idea to make the data from the machine, to transport them from the machine, from the customer inside the company, to make them a little bit more smart. And we have to learn how to automate it, because we can't do that manually, because it's a very high capacity thing. So after that, the time is running, so it's not so fast. So if you think you could do that in 1 month or in 6 months or in 12 months, oh, we learned it takes more time, because we have a lot of things to be discussed in the company. So for example, also the data quality. We have to discuss with the colleagues how to produce the machine, the data, and how we get them from the customer inside the company to make some things. So it takes time, and after this time, we took these things to turn the data in business values, in business use cases. And one of them, today, after 7 years, we could offer the customers some additions to the machine. We can also offer some services to the machine. So think about the time. It took 7 years to can do that, because we have to organize the process, we have to organize the data, we have to organize the service level agreements, and a lot of more jobs we have done. Today, we could not sell a machine as a product. Today, we can sell a machine, but we can also say pay per part for this example. So we can get, based on the data from the products, offer the service, pay per part in this example, and the customer have not to buy a machine. The customer pays for the parts the machine produced. And we get the data from this, and we can make the invoicing over the company side. It's one use case who can build up business cases with data. Other example we realized is also an option as a service. So power by the hour, for example. So the machine had more than the laser power they need, the customer need, inside. And if the machine or the customer needs the power, more power in the machine, he could pay for that. And he said, okay, I need for this order more power, more laser power, and could make this option and take this order. And for this order, he get more power from the machine. After this order, or after the order is done, the power of the machine decreased. So you have a lot of change in here in processes, in invoicing, and to make that orchestrable. The next example I share with you as a business example for predictive smart spare parts, our smart power tube. The smart power tube is a spare part who can predict himself. So we have the intelligence, what we learned with the data from the machine and the IoT data from the power tube. And we can, with this data, make a prediction with the AI system inside the company. And we have the edge computing inside the machine who can predict them. And one lesson I learned in the past with the customer, so in the past, before Corona happened, there was no problem for intelligent spare parts. Why? Because the spare parts could be delivered in less than 24 hours. So if the spare part going down, the customer calls Trumpf, and we can deliver the spare part, no problem. So it makes no sense to predict the defect of the spare part maybe for a long time, because till now with the data from the machines we learned to use the AI, and we can predict the downing of the spare parts more than 1 or 3 weeks. No customer believed that. And Corona happens, and what's then? So we have errors on the supply chain, you know. So the customer call, if the spare parts will down, the customer calls to the service center, and we had to say, okay, oh sorry, we couldn't deliver the spare part in 24 hours, you have to wait 3 weeks. The situation changed. And for the spare part in this example, it becomes more attractive for the customer, because the spare part could say, okay, you have maybe in 3 weeks a downtime with your machine, please call 3 weeks earlier, because we have to deliver in this time, and we make a guarantee for the spare part. So the customer is happy, we are happy because we can it better managed, and the customer have a more efficient production. It's another example of how can we drive with data, how can we make it business. And the last example I share with you what we learned is knowledge-based service engineering. You know, you have a lot of to know if you manage or you have to service some machine. And we took all our data from the service technician, and we have a knowledge-based service management on that, and we put it back to the customer, because the customer calls very often to the service technician, and they ask something easy or something complex, and it costs our capacity to answer the questions of the customer. So we took our knowledge and give it back to the customer with technical report and the service application, and the customer get the service technician knowledge in this way and could be serviced himself. It's a very interesting thing. And we used also AI because we join our knowledge to new knowledge for the customer as an automatic system. It's another example how can we do business with data. So till now, after 7 years, we could say, okay, the low-hanging fruit are done. That's what the examples you see were very complex, but that's what the simple things. What is about the complex and the complicated issues? So it becomes more complicated for us. And so you have to think about how is the data space organized in the shop floors all over the world, also with Catena in the automotive, for example. And here you see the shop floor system. It looks like very clean, very easy, no problem. You could connect to the machines, you could connect to the IT, and so on and so on. But the reality is a little bit more complex, you know. So that's our real examples from our systems, from the architecture systems we designed to manage all the data. And you see, not only in the shop floor, also in the company, we have very complex data warehouses, IoT systems, Kubernetes clusters, Docker containers, and a lot of more. So we have to solve many issues in the companies, and the employees have to solve them too, because it gets more and more complicated and complex inside the company, and the same is on the customer side too. Understand? It's different. We have different situations by the customer, in the industry, in the automotive, in their own company. A lot of architecture pictures, a lot of databases, a lot of transport protocols, and so on and so on. And you have to manage that, because it's not more till now so easy to have a plugin, to put it in, and then it's all fine and ready. All the things we've done are a lot of work. So we have to think about how can we manage the lot of work a little bit more smarter than in the future. So, and what we learned and what we think, and that's our interesting about Manufacturing X and also Catena-X, how can we manage and handle these heterogeneous architectures who till now not more scale anymore because it's too much. How can we handle that? And a second thing is, you know a little bit about OMLOGs, a new standard new standard for geolocation or location inside the company. If there comes a new standard in the world, so you have also to manage that in the existing architecture systems in the companies. How can we handle that? And how can we take advantage of these new possibilities? And so we think about, as a next step, as you see in these examples, what we do, we try to get more business on the data and to share more services for our customer. And one example in this OMLOGs, in this new standard, we try to integrate it in our own shop floor in Teningen, and we manage that with our ERP system. And I will show you in this video a live demonstration what we realized in the own shop floor to learn about how to use the standard OMLOGs, how to use and to integrate it in the existing architecture, and how to make business with them. And in this example, you see the tracking system, and this is ultra-wideband technology, and you run, the employee runs from station to station, and you see on the left side what's happened in the ERP system. You see full automatically changing about the station, in the ERP system will be tracked. So we integrate it, but I say it's a lot of work to do that. It's not so easy, and the idea is in the future, also with Manufacturing X, how get we that a little bit smarter and smoother to integrate it. And as you see, the possibilities with these new standards are very clear, but you have to handle that and you have to integrate it in your system. That's the problem. And the next thing is, if you use it in Catena-X, for example, so Siemens, SAP, and all the other companies had to do the same again and again and again. So that's a little bit a problem. But you can use new technologies to make it more smarter. Other example we tried out at the moment, it's a very interesting thing. So on the video you see Markus Georgi from Kinemics, he's the founder of Kinemics, and he sells today hardware. He has a smart sensor on his hand, and today he sells this sensor as his company asset. I said to him, okay, did you a lot of sailing about this? He said, not so. And we think about how can we sell a service as to make business in this side, to take the data from his hardware and not to sell the hardware as hardware, but to sell each transaction. So we pay not 100 euros for the hardware, but we pay 1 cent for each action of the sensor. So you can look what we try out. It's not a product, it's a proof of concept here. This is the hardware on Markus' hand. And now look, each gesture sends a little bit accounting on his account. Yeah, you see that in the ERP system. And it's interesting because we have here a hands-free situation for the employees and the workers on the production floor. So the problem is till now to make a OK, or to press a OK button, so job is done, or job is not done. And here with the you can check it with the gesture, check it or not with the cross, and the system recognized that all over the shop floor with our tracking system. It's a very interesting thing, but we sell the hardware, but we sell each check, you know. And that may be more scalable and more interesting in this as a service idea. So what other point we see? We learned a lot of new things are coming up, like generative AI. We don't want to talk about GPT, you know them all, and also the blockchain technology. So we have no new technologies will become usable. We see also that we have new laws in the EU. So especially the EU Data Act will be handled. We see that complexity is no longer manageable, and we see that data services are becoming more unaffordable because it costs more and more and more, because the complexity will grow up. So that is what we see, and we see also that we have a common challenge, and we have to think about a common solution. We have to find out to solve challenge in cybersecurity, in data governance, in data architectures, and the transportation. We have to do not only more individual. So Hagen told about we have to solve it together because it's too complex and too expensive to make it alone. And you see in my examples, the low-hanging fruits are done. We have to solve now the complex things and to make it more smart for us, for all of us, to integrate new standards, to integrate the data-driven business in this example, and that's the end of my presentation. So thank you very much that I have the chance to speak here. Arigato.
サビラ様、ありがとうございました。それでは引き続きパネルディスカッションを開始いたします。ヘス様、ホイバッハ様、壇上にお願いします。サビラ様も壇上にお願いいたします。はい、それではパネルディスカッションにご登壇いただく皆様、改めてご紹介させていただきます。ドイツ経済気候保護省次長のヘス様です。それからCatena-Xのホイバッハ様です。それからトゥルンプ社のインゴ・サビラ様です。よろしくお願いいたします。そしてモデレーターは私、日立製作所の入江が進めさせていただきます。それでは、パネルディスカッションに入りたいと思います。お三方のご講演伺いまして、非常にデータスペース、産業データ連携に関するいろんな示唆が得られたというふうに感じております。で本日パネルディスカッションにおいてはこういうフレームでちょっとディスカッションしたいと思っています。今投影しております。これはこのフレームは今RRI のアクショングループ4で産業データ連携におけるユースケースの議論をさせていただいています。でこれに用いているフレームとほぼ同じフレームでこの場でも問いをいくつか皆様にさせていただければと思います。じゃあ次のスライドお願いします。まず今日12時まで、パネルディスカッションということでだいたい1テーマ15分から20分ぐらいの形で、やりたいと思います。3つのテーマで、ディスカッションさせてください。まず、テーマ1です。データスペースもう本当に今Catena-Xが、もう2年前からビルドされてどんどん進んでいるかと思いますけれども、あと、マニュファクチャリングスが今、スタートしつつあって、でこういったそのデータスペースに参加するジョインするにあたってどういうモチベーションを持てばいいのか、あるいはドライブすればいいのかといったところについて、伺いたいと思います。まずヘス様に伺いたいと思います。ヨーロッパではガイア X に始まり、先ほどホイバッハ様から2年前にはCatena-Xに投資して、でかなりいろんなデータスペースに関するモチベーションを政府としてドイツ政府としてドライブされてきたかと思います。特に、その社会課題、環境問題をはじめとする社会課題、それからインダストリーをどう成長させるかといったそういったご講演あったと思いますけれども、そのあたり今一度2年前あるいは現在に鑑みたときに、どういうモチベーションをドイツ政府として考え、あるいは企業に、そのジョインするようにモチベーションアップを図っているかお聞かせください。
Thank you very much. Yes, the question points to the core of the government's engagement in this area. We felt a strong sense of urgency within the industry to shape up, because the basis for every, let's say, modern, up-to-date competition is a data-driven, data-based economy. And some years ago, partially in the industry that was known, it was partially taken up, but it was not broadly established. And we thought it might be worthwhile that the government, having understood from industry where the journey goes, should play a key role to bring things forward and to show support, both politically and by funding, let's say, a kind of ramp up for industries to adapt to the new reality. And after a certain time of discussions, we thought it might be a good idea not to go around and throwing money at the problem, but to have a more focused approach to, in the end, as Hagen Heubach has shown, come up with concrete proposals how to solve future problems or known problems with future technology, because the basis for everything is the data that is in the system, and it needs to be used, and it needs to be used in a more or less standardized way, because a fragmented industry is not what we want. We want them to be able to compete at international level, so they had to join forces to come up in the end with standards to play by. And that is the reason why we thought to convince those who were not convinced at that point, and nowadays I would say it's a good estimation to say that 80%, perhaps even more, of Germany's, and I think European industry is prepared to work in a data-based industry. Thank you.
ヘス様ありがとうございます。かなり本当に産業の将来を考えて政府がエンゲージしていくといったお話だったと思います。ありがとうございました。それでは同じ質問をホイバッハ様にもさせていただきたいと思います。特にCatena-Xということで自動車業界かなり環境問題でもいろいろと言われてますし、ただ一方で今日のご講演にあったように OEM からティア1、それからいろんなさまざまなバリューチェーンに関わる企業もこの取り組みに参加せねばならないといった講演の内容だったかと思います。このあたりどうモチベートしていっているのかということについてお聞かせいただければと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think, as Mr. Heß already laid out, I mean, this is a problem which not only affects the automotive industry, because on the one hand side, if we look at the entire value chain for automotive, even at the second tier layer, we are already out of automotive. We are in chemicals, we are in high-tech industries with the chip, and the lower we're getting into mill and mining with the raw materials and small and medium-sized companies. That's the one thing. Second thing, definitely we are global because supply chains and value chains are running global. So we need to find a way actually to make it as attractive and to incentivize actually the join of a data space on all levels. So how do we do that? Or how do we say, okay, how do we motivate companies to join? On the one hand side, there always needs to be a win-win in data sharing from both sides. Creating these win-win situations is core crucial. Why? Especially if you think of the automotive industry, how it was running over the last 40, 50 years in a very traditional way. We all know this pyramid where the OEM, the big one, sits on top and then it cascades down. This is truly changing, and this is truly changing if we provide a data sharing approach where both parties can get their value out of it. So this means, of course, the OEM can get the value by looking into the value chain to the second and the third tier. But on the other side, we also find out there is a need from suppliers and machine providers to get access to their systems, to their components which are provided into the vehicles, for example. So getting access on both sides of the end and providing data is definitely one big incentive what we can provide from a, I would say, business perspective. Second of all, of course, a system actually must be trustworthy. And the motivation to trust a system is always the highest good, and data sovereignty, that's why we also love the approach of Gaia-X and funnel this together, is one of the biggest accelerators, because future processes, we always have to be clear, they must be interoperable. We clearly see this on every level. Company processes need to be open, they need to be collaboratively. And if we think about how to tackle these future use cases and these problems, yeah, of course, I mean, every company you can work on your own approach and you try to solve it by yourself, but as Mr. Heß also said, you're just throwing money on the problem and try to solve it. So why not coming together and solve this problem together and then of course also invest and get the extract out of it together. And we are really happy, I mean, on the journey what we took with Catena, if there are other technologies and other approaches what we can come up to solve this problem. But as of now, a decentralized, data sovereign technology approach to bring together the entire value chain was the only, and also to be honest, the future technology to look at. This is technology what we didn't have in IT for many, many years. Now we have it. Now we can come together, and now we can actually solve it. Last but not least, and that's the last point of looking at it, this combination around business value and, of course, social responsibility. You know, sustainability is, of course, a big factor also in Catena-X. And for a long, long time, obviously, the automotive industry globally considered sustainability as, I would say, not a burden, but a thing to do on it. But all of a sudden, and that's a good example also for new business value and new business processes, we see if you put together all the different chapters and components of the value chain, there is new business models, new value in, especially if we look in the area of reusable components, circularity. This is actually for many, many of the industry companies who joined Catena-X also a sustainable business model of saying, how can we turn actually at the end of the life cycle the components back into the value chain? How can we resell or reuse and optimize the entire value chain? So we truly see sustainability and business value doesn't exclude them, each other. It's more of fostering them together. So at the end, making sustainability profitable and also profitability sustainable if you work on both sides. Thank you.
ホイバスさんありがとうございました。非常に具体的な車の事例での取り組み本当に参考になります。ちょっと1点だけ追加質問させてください。ウィンウィンになるっていうのは極めてやはり重要だと思います。このウィンウィンになるためのこれまでのいわゆるハイアラーキーのビジネススタイルからそれぞれがデータ連携でウィンウィンになる時のなんていうかなどうそれをディスカッションするか、こうすればウィンウィンになるっていうようなポイントをどうやったらそういう場を作れるのかっていうところなんかもしあればお聞かせください。
Yeah, I mean, for sure we are still learning, and let's be honest, no? In the entire industry around that one, how we establish this win-win relationship. The thing what we truly found out is if we bring together the players of the industry and just talk openly what are the needs on both sides, you come immediately into areas where you say, hey, a supplier getting access to real-life telematics data in a vehicle is a true thing. And as of now, let's be also honest, there is no possibility from a second or third-tier supplier to really get access. However, actually, if we provide a framework and a trusted ecosystem around that one, we truly enable that. Yeah? And of course, the OEM always has a need to look into the value chain, as we learned, then you are already in this win-win. The problem is only, how do we set up now this trust? And there actually, Gaia, Catena, manufacturing, or approaches like this are coming now into the play. Why? Because we are establishing with this framework, we call it always the so-called trusted handshake. Both parties agree on, hey, we trust each other, we exchange the data, but at full data sovereignty. Anytime one party decides, okay, enough, then we're gonna also vanish on this ride again. And this is really increasing a lot of trust between the mutual parties. So win-win identification first, second, then establishing the trusted handshake, and then starting step by step. And you know what? It's also not always of immediately exchanging all the data. It's making small examples, small proof points, and then gaining the trust from there.
ありがとうございました。非常に参考になりました。それではこのモチベーションに関する質問サビラさんにもさせてください。サビラさんのプレゼンだと会社の中でまず DX をしっかりやってっていうところすごく共感できる部分もありますし非常に苦労もされたんだなと思いました。でこれからそれをデータスペースにジョインしていくためにトランプ社としてどういう形でジョインしていくかっていうそのモチベーションどう今考えているかっていうことに質問させてください。
Thank you very much for this question. So I will give you two examples I talk about or before. The one example is we are also partner in Catena-X, and the success of our collaboration is some automotive have the theoretical product carbon footprint of the part. The machine which produced the part have the exactly power consumption and the carbon footprint. And this information we collaborate, and now we have a better system and a better system understanding because we have a theoretical product carbon footprint, we calculate it, and we combine that with the machine and we see, oh, it's exactly the same or we have a difference, and if we see we have a difference, we can have a transaction or action to optimize that. That's a success of collaboration between two OEMs in a one supply chain. That's one example why we have a motivation to join in such kind of data spaces. Because we have to manage all the data and we have to manage the machine architecture to give the data in this kind of data spaces to manage and to orchestrate the potentials. One example. The other example I told before, if I speak in my presentation about the spare parts, the smart power tube, so if you want to get this product in Japan, you couldn't get it. Why? Because we have to make a contract with a customer. Okay, and the customer said, maybe I want to I don't want to share my data with you, I don't know what you made with it, and so on and so on. We have to solve the ground basic questions with our partners, with our customers. And the motivation is, if we do that together, it becomes more speed in this question to share the data, because then you get a product and you have a win-win situation for this example. We have a better machine, the customer has a better production, we can handle the spare part much more smarter than only in Europe, so we can manage all over the world, because we don't want to solve the same thing in another way in another country. And that's the other reason to think about how can we build up this kind of data spaces, this manufacturing data spaces, to handle ideas together. So if the Japanese colleagues in this example have a good idea from DMG, for example, other great company, they want to think about how to solve that in other countries again and again. And that's the idea and the motivation to join in this collaboration from data spaces to make standards, to solve it, and to make more power to the customer. Thank you.
サビラさん、本当にありがとうございました。かなり自社のでもやはりデータを使ってウィンウィンになる、あるいはそれによって競争力を増すっていうところにやはりみんなでデータスペースにジョインするっていう、そこのモチベーションがあるというふうに理解しました。ありがとうございました。はい、それではテーマ1のディスカッションはこのくらいにして、ではテーマ2に移りたいと思います。テーマ2はですね、これ国内でのユースケースのディスカッションでもまだまだ現在のCatena-Xの例えば状況もまだあまり理解されておらず、よってもってデータスペース全体に対するいろんな懸念点っていうのがいろいろと出てきています。でこの中にはもちろんCatena-Xとかで解決されている部分もあると思いますし、ただ全体先ほどサビラさんのプレゼンにもありましたけど、やっぱり自社の中がやっぱり DX されてないとなかなかデータスペースにジョインするといっても難しいものがあるみたいな、そういった議論が国内でも生じてます。そういう意味ではこういったデータスペースに関するいろんな懸念点っていうのをどうこれまで払拭してきたか、あるいはまだスティール 課題であるみたいなところをちょっとお聞きしたいと思います。このあたりちょっとテクニカルになりますので、まずホイバッハさんにちょっと伺いたいと思います。まずCatena-X、2年間でかなり本当に急速に立ち上げられてて、でその、立ち上げた時からのその懸念点をどうこう解決してきたかっていうところをまずちょっとお聞かせいただけますでしょうか。
Yeah, as always, no? If you start a new endeavor, there are 1 million problems and 1 million reasons not to do it, actually. No? The thing and the great thing, I think, about Catena is that we are all willing and we are all very passionate about this one. Why? Because relating to theme 1, everyone immediately saw the win-win. And the win-win is, by the way, not only for the industry, as I said, as adopters, also for the outfitters. Because only if we can establish new processes, we can build new cool applications, new platforms, and so on and so forth. There's win-win for everyone. That's the first thing. Second, if you then go into establishing such a data space, of course there are a lot of technology problems to solve and how to actually establish and build and develop a decentralized ecosystem. That's one of the things. Second, there's a lot of course, what needs to be done to be data ready from a data sharing perspective out of the companies. Because we all know that we are living up to 30, 40 years established ERP systems where material numbers and semantics are completely different from supplier to OEM, from small and medium components companies to recyclers. So streamlining on that one, of course, that's first an invest, and it's also something what needs to be done. However, and this is also very pragmatically, putting actually these problems or these technical problems into a use case from the beginning is a real accelerator. Why? Because we say now all of a sudden we don't build a data space only because of having a data space. I mean, it's not the purpose what we're doing here, exchanging data. The value always comes with the use case and the underlying business process what we're driving together. And that's why for Catena, and that's also the proof points what we did from the beginning, the use cases are always leading. Yeah? The technology must feed into it and the technology must provide for it. And you can call it data space or whatever, I don't care. As long as it fulfills the problem on my use case, then it's a great example. And Ingo, I'm always thinking back when we started, I mean, really the first small proof points how to stitch together this value chain and material traceability. This is something what we tested out, I think, after 2-3 months. And always think about it. This is 2-3 months after launching a project. So when we know this in traditional projects, we first make a lot of program management, we do a lot of paperwork and architecture and whatever. We did it the other way around, by the way. We really started, said, give me a use case, we stitch it together, we try it out, and then from there we learn and improve. And this is actually what you do also in the new, I would say, IT cloud first world, leading also with AI into the future. This is something what we all need to learn also in automotive, that's very clear, but it helped us a lot. It helped us a lot to gain trust and also confidence that we can do that. And then step by step replicate it to the other use cases, get new users on board, get the business in the side, and then we could learn about it one. Ingo, what do you say? Anything from your side?
Yeah, definitively. Thank you, Hagen. I can tell a lot of stories, what I learned in the company to discuss with the colleagues and the employees about data and data classification and what is personal data and what means data protection and a lot of questions we talk about. And it's crazy what we do. I talk about a service technician application about knowledge management. So what we do in the company is we take the manuals from OEMs like Siemens. We use the Siemens control in our machines, and we take the manuals from the company Siemens and we translate it in a Trumpf-like service technician language. Crazy. But the colleagues did that for a couple of years. They don't have the question what we're doing here, because we make a translation from a knowledge system, PDF manual, into a service technician handbook, PDF. So I talk with them, what you are doing here, it's a lot of costs we produce, there's a lot of time consumption, manual action. And the idea is then to say, okay, what's happened if we have a data space with the companies like Siemens or others? It's a little bit an example like the product passport. We give information in a structured way, in a defined, smart way, and we make a pre-use, and we don't have to make any translation from information anymore, because we make, and that's what Hagen explained, we have a good semantic and a good idea in the architecture who made this possible. Today, not, but in the future, it will become possible. And that's the effort for the companies, because we have not more manual time consumption actions to do. But the question is then, what will the employees have to do done? Or what's the next job of them? So we have to think about how can we manage this, and how could we qualify the employees to take the meanings and the behaviors of sharing the information or sharing the data inside the companies and over the company again. That's examples of what we do in the company and what the problems are. So I hope I could explain a little bit this question.
ホイバーハさん、サビラさん、ありがとうございます。それぞれ、いろんなこれまでの経験、特にやっぱり具体的なユースケースドリブンで、ある種アジャイルにいろんな課題を発見して解決していくっていうようなアプローチだというふうに、理解しました。で、今まさにCatena-Xはいろんなプレイヤーを今どんどん巻き込んでる最中だと思いますし、あと今度マニファクチャリング X っていう観点だと、これから本当にいろんなユースケース立ち上げていく時期かと思ってます。その中でどういうふうにデータスペースを今後さらにブラッシュアップしていくかみたいなっていう、そういったところは何かアイディアありますでしょうか。ホイバッハさんあります。
Now, first of all, I truly believe we just need to give a little bit up the thought of that it's one data space and it's one physical room where we always meet. No? Because at the end, data spaces in that context are decentralized Web3 technology, what we're using to give access rights to share data, right? The data space is actually only the place where we meet up and do the trusted handshake around that one. No? And for us, I mean, this was also the purpose a little bit from the German government of saying, guys, if you start this endeavor now, please always have in mind we don't want to reinvent the wheel for other industries, right? So when we're starting building the first federated services and the technology framework, which is based on Gaia-X, it was always the purpose, this needs to be replicated or replicable to other industries, I think. That's the right term to say. Why? Because at the end, and it's also what the automotive value chain always says, or what we see, from the T2, Tier 3, we are in other industries. As I said, chemical and so on and so forth. So it doesn't matter where you use these federated services, it can be replicated also into other industries and also adopted in there. For sure, there will be other use cases. For sure, there will be slightly other processes. Sometimes there also are some other technology services needed. But the core, and I would say the heart of data spaces by itself shouldn't change at all. The underlying principle for us, and this is always the guidance, it needs to be open, it needs to be interoperable, and it needs to be secure. And openness from our side comes, hey, we're developing these services on an open source approach. No one is owning it, no one is governing it, so that's the way to go. Security comes from Gaia-X and the framework where we're living. And interoperability, this is the job from the IT companies to ensure that we can speak between the different platforms and systems to implement it.
Definitively, and what we want to prove is how to scale that what Catena-X has as a blueprint for the whole industry, and that's an interesting point. We will prove that what created at the moment, but we know that we have to do a lot of work in the future because we have the start point till now. And for manufacturing X and the rest of the industry, we have to think about how can we manage the difficult or the different problems in this way. We will find solutions in that. It took time, so I talk about our lesson was 7 years, so it's not solved next month, but we will work hard on it and we will scale it up. And I'm very sure that it will be successful with the colleagues here and with the collaboration and with the open source community. We will grow up in this way, and we will see what happened with the companies and with the employees of the companies who could spend time to build up in this open source community the data spaces. And like Hagen said, it's not only one data space, it's a lot of data space, and we have to manage this in a fine and a good architecture, so we will be integrated very smooth.
ホイバーさん、インゴさん、サビラさんありがとうございました。でこのデータスペースの、今後のその将来っていうことに関しましては、最初にヘスさんからありましたように、インターナショナリゼーション、本当に国際的にどんどんこうつながっていくっていうことが必要だというふうにおっしゃってたかと思います。このあたりじゃあどうこう進めていければいいかみたいなところはヘスさんから何かもしコメントありましたらよろしくお願いいたします。
I would not go on the slippery ground of uttering something technical, because that is the remit of those two guys. But for the government, I might be entitled to say that we want to see a transformational process that is happening in the end, that the industry that is there and the industry to come to be competitive at international level. And the data-based transformation is nothing that takes place only in one sector of industry. It's cross-cutting and it's cross-country. And for the government, it's important to see that industry, once this is understood by politicians, they always ask industry, what are you doing to adapt to this situation? And that is what we need from the government's part to support, if there is a need for support. And we felt there is a need to ramp up and to raise awareness, and that is happening. And afterwards, we have to, from the governmental side, step back a bit and see what's happening inside industry across the sectors. And so far, so good. Thank you.
ヘさん、どうもありがとうございました。業界全体でのその、競争力向上といったところをベースにそのデータスペースをこうどんどん拡張していくという話だったかと思います。はい、それでは最後のテーマ、ディスカッションテーマに移りたいと思います。これまで皆さんからいろんなコメントもありましたし、プレゼンの中でもいろいろと事例も含めてあったかと思いますが、今一度テーマ3としてはやはりこうデータスペースが切り開くフューチャーマニファクチャリング、どういうこう製造業の在り方とか未来像っていうのをせっかくの機会ですので語っていただければなというふうに思ってございます。これちょっと順番を変えてまずは今トランプ社でいろいろとやられているようなところをストレッチするという意味で、まずサビラさんからちょっとお話を伺って、その後じゃあ自動車業界でそれをどうっていうことと、さらにこうインターナショナルっていう順番でちょっと伺いたいと思います。ということでまずサビラさんからよろしくお願いします。
Okay, thank you very much for this question. So it's a little bit difficult to think about what's the future of manufacturing-driven data spaces. But I think we have a transformation in the business. So as we think about how can we handle equipment as a service, or how can we think about as a service systems or everything as a service, nobody believes we could make business with them. because we are a traditional manufacturer of machines, and we sell machines, and the whole company learned about 100 years perfectly to sell machines and to build up these machines. Nobody has an idea what means of or what it means if we sell services. But what we see is that we have in the community and also by our customer increasing in interests in to get this kind of services. So we have to have a changing inside the company. And the future thing is to scale this idea up and to transform the business model, the primary business model, from selling hardware to selling services, to get more as a solving company or a solution provider company more than a hardware company. And that is only possible with with data-driven systems, to use the new technologies like AI, like blockchain I explained, because to handle this complexity and to have not so much manual tasks inside the companies, we have more and more to automate it. So we have a transformation inside the company in this way to make a new business, and it will be growing up, but it would only works if we do the same transformation speed, because if we are too fast, the market will become, or is not so fast, and we have no effect. So we have to synchronize the speed with all of the companies in the market at the same way, at the same speed, a little bit more, a little bit less, but we have to sync them, because we struggle if we are as a company alone too fast in some kind of these points of data spaces. So that's the idea, and I think we will arrive this future maybe in 10 years, 10, 15 years. So, but with your support, it will be more faster. Thank you.
サビタさんありがとうございました。もう本当に今 RRI の中で議論している本当にものづくりからどうやってサービス化するっていうところを本当にデータスペースを使ってどう成長させていくかっていう本当に我々としても本当に考えなきゃいけないというコメントでした。ありがとうございました。それではホイバッハさん自動車業界のもう本当にデータスペースによる将来っていうのをもし語っていただければと思います。よろしくお願いします。
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you take now, especially the topics and points what Ingo just laid out for automotive, actually it gives you a little bit more broader context if you look at the entire industry. And I mean, if you look at the entire value chain from automotive and everything what's currently going on, we all agree that disruption of the whole automotive industry is massive. New technology kicking in with the whole electrification, autonomous driving, the shift towards AI, new business models. We also have the subscription in automotive. These are massive, massive changes to an entire ecosystem and industry, where we, of course, also, in the context then of manufacturing, need to be much more resilient and efficient. On the other side, much more sustainable. So if you think about all across the companies which are tackling these massive trends around autonomous and so on and so forth, if it comes down to automotive and the future state of automotive, you need to be in the manufacturing super resilient and super efficient across the entire value chain. Think about all the impacts which are coming left and right, raw material shortages, uncertainty, crisis, war and whatever. The manufacturing approach and the manufacturing systems of the future must be super resilient and also much more efficient. And on the other side, of course, manufacturing of the future delivers an approach to be much more sustainable if you plan and also manufacture from the beginning in a responsible way of using components, avoiding waste in the production, being more green on your CO2 footprint and the processes what you come there. So focusing on these two topics will be super critical to the future. And data spaces and data-driven value chain are the vehicle to bring us there. So to saying working continuously on there will turn your company into a resilient, sustainable manufacturing, I would say company at the end, where we can stitch all the different knots together and then, of course, also unleash new business processes and also new business models.
ホイバーさんありがとうございます。ちょっと先ほどサビラさんから製造業がサービス化するのに10年から15年ぐらいというお話ありました。今度自動車業界が大きな変革を受ける中でデータスペースで本当 2B 像に至るまでに大体何年ぐらいかかるっていうふうにイメージされてますでしょうか。
I mean, we see it already. No, I mean, think always about it. We have very well established players all around the globe for 50, 100 years actually manufacturing cars at scale and in best quality. However, there are also the new players, the new EV companies, what we see of just starting up, and they are building exactly these processes from scratch. So we all know about this, transitional field of tension about running a very profitable business while at the same time transforming in the future. So for these companies, obviously, I mean, this will take a little bit of time. We talk about 5 to 10 years here. However, what I see and what we see, especially for the new players, new lean startup OEMs which are coming into the game, they start from a greenfield approach and they're building these processes exactly now. Truly, I see this in 2-3 years already coming in that area. Especially, and that's one thing what we always see in the automotive industry, especially if we look to China. China is moving much, much faster than any other region currently when it comes to automotive manufacturing, automotive value chains.
はい、ホイバーさんありがとうございました。それではこの質問最後にヘスさんにも伺いたいと思います。本当にドイツという国の視点、あるいは今度業界全体の視点、あるいはヨーロッパ世界っていう観点で本当にこの製造業をどうやって成長させていくかっていうことについてヘスさんからもちょっとコメントいただければと思います。よろしくお願いします。
Well, the short answer would be those who make their money by doing business don't need to be encouraged to do so. I mean, the fundamental change we all see is that your home market is no longer sufficient to make business in the upcoming time. So what every company that is working on a global level is supposed to do is to look where the relevant market will be or will be shaped by framework conditions, geopolitical impact or whatever. And the industry that is data-based is an industry that is scalable, that is able to deal with every particular market, fragmented market framework conditions. As in former times, they always had to do something specific for the specific markets. And the data-based economy goes beyond that. So you have to adapt your, let's say, the treatment of the data and to adapt to local market conditions. And that is something that is scalable, and it goes far beyond your home market, your hometown. And for a government, it is important to see that this is a development that takes place around the globe. So what's the option? Lean back and say you have a very much promising industry that goes by itself. Perhaps that works. I have my doubts. And the other thing is, if you understand that it only works for the industry wherever it comes from, when it goes hand in hand with the political side as well as the companies and the partners of the companies involved, then I think we have a better, well, let's say, take-off situation, because some framework conditions companies cannot cannot rule on. That is something the governments have to do their share. And that is what we think is our task, to provide, let's say, some kind of framework, awareness, certainty in terms of framework, and a kind of ramp-up investment funding. That's true. But as long as it takes place across the board, the government, I would say every government, should be satisfied, but because that is the takeoff point for the industry to strive and to be competitive and to be able to run that race. Thank you.
ヘスさんありがとうございます。本当に製造業として本質的な変化、それをどう対応していくか、それをみんなでやるために本当にデータスペースが活用されていくんだという話だと思います。ありがとうございます。はい、セッションもあと10分ほどになりましたけども、この辺りでこのテーマに関するディスカッションはちょっと、終了しまして、これに関連すること、あるいはそれ以外でも何か登壇者の皆様にご質問ありましたらお受けしたいと思います。まず会場の方で何かご質問等ございましたらよろしくお願いいたします。
IVI の西岡です。本日は大変貴重な講演いただきましてありがとうございました。Catena-X の最新の状況がとてもよく理解できました。ただまだ中身が完全に理解できていない可能性があるので質問なんですけれども、ヘスさんが最初に Gaia-X を始めた時には、結構ピアトゥピアのコミュニケーションを強調されていたと思うんですね。やはり産業データの場合はセキュリティとか、知的財産権が多いので、なかなかデータのシェア共有というのは抵抗があるけれども、ピアトゥピアであれば大丈夫だということで、Gaia-X の場合は、そういったそのメタデータであるとかルールは共通だけれどもデータはピアトゥピアという話だったと私はお話を聞いていて伺いました。ただ本日のお話だとなんとなくデータのシェアリング、データベースあるいはデータスペースの中でみんなでデータをシェアしましょうというような色がだいぶ濃くなってきているような気がするんですけども、それは私の勘違いなのか、あるいは実際のところはそういうその中身がどのようなマネジメント、特にデータ主権という場合にはデータを出した当事者がそのデータをどうコントロールできるのかというところに関してはピアトゥピアの場合は非常にやりやすいけれども、やはりデータをシェアした場合はそのアクセスコントロールとかユーセージコントロールは難しいと思いますので、その辺の現状はどのような考え方で、特にCatena-Xはインプリメンテーションどうなっているのか教えてください。
Super. Maybe I can tackle it from both angles, from a technology but also from a business perspective. Super good question, first of all. Yes, indeed. What we see, and especially for automotive, that we are moving away from a classical peer-to-peer data exchange to a network-based data exchange. Why? Because, once again, the underlying business problems, what we try to solve, you need to be multi-level tier in the value chain. So somehow we need to jump across 1-2 peers and get the data together. That's first. Second, this only happens actually if everyone trusts the system and everyone actually is agreeing on sharing the data. Why? Because if one of the middle suppliers says, oh, wait, I don't want to share the data from my sub-suppliers, then we have a big problem. So how to solve that problem? The problem, first of all, is not solved by establishing a central data sharing platform where the data are, exactly as you said, leaving the company or the data controller at any time. That's one of the fundamental technological changes what we have made with Catena-X, with Gaia, and with Manufacturing-X. What we're doing with the decentralized network like Catena, we're giving actually access rights to look at the data, but you never will leave the data. And this gives exactly you always the control of saying, look, you can share, you can actually access the data, but at a certain time where you say, okay, now our trusted handshake is over, you can also take it away. So at the point of time, everyone of the whole ecosystem and the whole network who is sharing has full control of when giving the data to whom is giving the data. And now, second point is how to solve actually that we don't look into the value chain completely uncontrolled. This is based on a principle called one tier up, one tier down. So which means at the end, everyone who is sharing data from the OEM to the first tier, the second, and so on and so forth, always gives the control of saying, okay, I'm sharing with Ingo, but I'm not sharing, for example, with Mr. Heß. But I can share maybe with Mr. Iri, obvious. So this is always about the one up, one down. If we're not allowing to share further into the value chain, then it's not going to happen. And therefore, of course, I mean, it's somehow a peer-to-peer, but it's much more network-based in the end state.
はい、どうもありがとうございました。基本的にはデータはシェアするけれども、コントロール、ポリシーでピアトゥピアをソフトウェア的に実現しているという、そういった理解でよろしいですね。ちょっと長くなりますけれども、その場合に、それは当然、それをしっかりと遵守するメンバーが、コミットメントすれば、その世界は成り立ちますけれども、もちろん世の中には悪い人たちもたくさんいるわけで、その場合にそのルールを違反した場合の保証であるとか、あるいはセキュリティのその担保というところは、やはり企業としてはとっても気になりますけれども、法律的にはデータの、オーナーシップは認められていない状態の中で、それに対するデータの、差し止めであるとか、あるいはオーナーシップの主張ということが、法律レベルでは今、クリアになっていないという状況の中で、テクノロジーがどこまで守れるのか、守れなかったときにどのような対応がリアルな世界であり得るのかというところは、もしコメントがあればお願いします。
Absolutely. And perfect follow-up question on it, because believe us or not, I mean, Ingo and me, we have this discussion a lot. Of course, the trust is very low at the beginning, and especially for especially small and medium-sized companies, because the system what we're going to do here, of course, it's first of all not easy to understand and saying, okay, wow, the data is not leaving my company, how does it work then? But if on the other side someone wants to steal the data, exactly as you say, technically it would be possible. One of the core fundamental services what we have developed together is exactly this Eclipse Dataspace connector, which gives you the trusted handshake between several parties, right? And this Eclipse Dataspace connector is actually certified by several instances coming from the Gaia framework, coming from Catena framework, going over to the manufacturing network that we're saying, hey, it's all going in the same direction. So from a technology perspective, we're doing everything, the data sovereignty is respected, that's for sure. However, in the certain case, if one of the companies, one of the software providers, one of the platforms is establishing, let's say, a crawler for data and, stealing the data from left to right, of course, that's a breach of contract. And then, especially as you said, legal obligations and legal impacts will follow. Because what we're doing on a business perspective is nothing else that two parties agree to share data on a legal framework. And if this legal framework is breached, of course, there will be consequences agreed to or not. So the problem is now only we're talking about millions and millions and millions of these contracts. Why? Because we're sharing data all across in the perfect state, logistics data, quality data, mobility data, and so on and so forth. What technology can do and help there is actually the methodology of smart contracting. So we're talking about services, and that's the next level what Catena-X also is working on, establishing the smart contracts where you have a technology and digital contract with different parties, and the administration is handled by these federated services. So yes, technology can help, but of course there will always be legal impacts around this methodology.
どうもありがとうございました。
はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。 今日バーチャルでもオンラインでも参加者が多分600名超えてると伺ってます。でオンラインでも質問ちょっといくつかいただいてますので、ちょっともう時間あと 2,3 分しかないんですけども、1問だけちょっとこちらから読み上げて回答いただければと思います。これ英語でちょっと質問いただいているので英語で。Catena-X is a fully open source. The Heubach has mentioned. If there are any plans or ideas about making Catena-X an international standard such as the ISO or IC?
I let Mr. Heß answer that, or Ingo.
Well, in the end, it only flies if it's a joint undertaking. And if you call it by its origins, yes, it's European, partly German. But the entire conference, symposium, is about the international cooperation. And Catena-X, the philosophy, the systematics, the semantics, is there to be scaled up to an international purpose. So the real return on investment, so to say, for all companies and countries to be part of and not to join something, but to be part of, is that the option is there to use and to improve Catena-X for their respective interests, purposes, and business models. And to this end, yes, we would like to see it fly around the globe, but we need the input and the commitment from others to do so, because it's something that only works on a, let's say, mutual exchange, mutually beneficial exchange, and in the end, improvement of, let's say, also the technical aspects as well as the international rollout. Thank you.
ヘス様、本当に最後コメントありがとうございました。もう本当にディスカッション尽きないと思います。いろいろとオンラインでも質問いただいてますけども、時間になりましたので、これでパネルディスカッション終了したいと思います。皆様もう一度ご登壇の皆様に拍手をお願いいたします。ありがとうございました。この後は昼休みを挟みまして午後1時よりセッション2となります。セッション2では日本、ドイツ、アメリカから各地の動向をご紹介いただき、産業界のデジタル化におけるビジョンについてご議論していただきますので、ぜひ皆様引き続きご参加いただければと思っております。なお会場の方でお帰りになる場合は同時通訳のレシーバー受付にて返却、お願いいたします。はい、それでは以上をもちましてセッション1終了したいと思います。ご聴講の皆様、本当にありがとうございました。